Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Inside View with Teddy Panos. I am your host, Teddy Panos, coming to you here from the InsideLowell studios in beautiful, historic downtown Lowell. We are recording this on a bright, sunny, spring-like Monday morning, March 27th. When you're watching it, who knows? You might watch it later today, tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now. But as we like to say here at InsideLowell, we provide news, information, and sometimes entertainment on your schedule, not ours. So whenever you're joining us, thank you for being here. We got a special guest today, someone who's making an awful lot of news headlines, and it's a timely interview. We'll explain what that's all about. First, let me thank all of our sponsors for helping make this podcast, all of our podcasts, and InsideLowell possible as well. Our friends at Washington Savings Bank. There's my coffee mug. I got it when I opened my first Washington Savings Bank account here at InsideLowell. I opened up another one just a couple of weeks ago. It was literally done by computer, by cell phone, didn't even have to stop in person. 15, 20 minutes of trading texts back and forth, voila, brand new bank account. It's that easy, it's that simple for you as well. Their service is that personalized and that community customer driven. Check them out online, washingtonsavings.com. That's washingtonsavings.com, Washington Savings Bank with branches in Lowell and in Dracut. Thank you as well to our friends at Hafner's. You see the kicking donkey sign behind me, Hafner's, it kicks, it sure does. They've got gas stations, convenience stores, car washes all around the Merrimack Valley and southern New Hampshire. And your car probably could use a good washing right about now. I know mine does as well after the rain this weekend. Check them out. Learn more about their home heating services as well. Never too early to prepare for the next winter. And we still probably have some cold days ahead of us before we get to summer. Call 866-IT-KICKS, 866-IT-KICKS, or visit hafners.com to learn more. And last but certainly not least, that other logo behind me, Reverie 73, a new cannabis store here in Lowell. Not so new, actually. They're about to open 2 new locations this year, one in Beverly, one in Gloucester, but they stand out right away. Reverie 73, you look at the store, the outside, then you step inside. It's bright, it's beautiful, it's clean, the staff is friendly, the staff is knowledgeable, always willing to go the extra mile to answer any questions you may have. So whether you're brand new to the world of cannabis or a connoisseur, check out the folks at Reverie 73. They are sure to elevate your experience. Again, 1148 Bridge Street in Lowell, or you can order online at reverie73.com. And with that, let me turn my attention to my special guest this morning. Longtime friend, but now in high places. Talk about friends in high places. She is the auditor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, getting sworn in January after winning election last fall. State Auditor Diana DiZoglio. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be in the great city of Lowell.
Yeah, it's great to have you. This was kind of like your home away from home for the longest time.
And it still is. Graduate of Middlesex Community College, my friends. Worked at the United Teen Equality Center right downtown as their cultural arts coordinator. Served at Girls Inc. for a short stint in a volunteer capacity, helping with their after-school programs. I love Lowell. It's always great to be here. And of course, I'm generally hanging out when I'm here at none other than the Athenian Corner.
Oh, hold on. I have to get the gratuitous plug. But I didn't know I was getting a gratuitous plug over there.
You didn't know it was coming that quickly.
There we go. Yeah. Let me put that away now because we've got serious stuff to talk about. You've been in the news headlines an awful lot lately. On March 7th, you announced that a campaign promise of yours, that if elected auditor, you were going to conduct an audit of the Massachusetts legislature. You announced that you had begun that process, immediately met with some pushback from Senate President Karen Spilka. And then on Friday, just last Friday, March 24th, the Speaker of the House, Speaker Mariano, released a statement as well, pushing back against your authority and ability to do that. First of all, thank you, Speaker Mariano, for the timing of that, because we'd arranged this interview about 3 weeks ago, and the timing of it couldn't be better. I need to send you a nice thank you card, and I'll put you on my Christmas card list as well. But this is really kind of your first chance to kind of publicly, in a lengthy format, respond to what now both the Speaker and the Senate President have said about your audit of them. What was your reaction to what they said?
I find it very concerning that legislative leaders are pushing back so hard regarding an audit that every other state entity receives. We are not able to conduct personal investigations. Personal information is generally redacted from the documents that are sent from us because it's our office's mandate to conduct audits of processes and procedures. And that is something that happens in every state agency, not to harm those agencies, but to help those agencies by identifying gaps in the systems, areas where we can do better, and by working to identify potential waste, potential fraud, potential abuse, so that we can do better for the residents that we serve. And to hear some of the comments that have been made about this and to have legislative leaders pushing back so hard really is a cause for concern. Other state entities have welcomed audits. Our office receives an audit from the National Association of State Auditors. And, this is something that we really didn't expect this type of pushback on. Again, it's an audit. It's something that's meant to help and not to hurt. And it's meant to shine a light in the dark areas of state government so that we can all do better for those that we serve.
So you said you didn't expect pushback like this. When you made this promise...
We thought there might be some pushback. But the extent of the pushback is what's concerning, along with some of the comments that have been made.
Because when you made this a campaign issue, a lot of folks pushed back, including your predecessor, Auditor Suzanne Bump, said, we don't have the authority to do this. She can't do it. It's unconstitutional. And that's where I kind of wanted to start where do you believe you are getting the authority to do this? Because it's not stated anywhere in the Massachusetts Constitution or Charter or whatever they're calling it. But then again, it's not stated anywhere that you don't have that authority. And publicly already we know that there was an audit done in 1922, right? 101 years ago. Where do you believe you get the authority to do this?
Yeah, I mean, look, the people of Massachusetts elected me to the Office of State Auditor with the understanding that this was going to be something that I pursued. That to me is a mandate to pursue this issue tirelessly and diligently. Now, the question about authority in our office, if you'll notice, most of the questions surrounding the authority of the state auditor's office to be able to do this, most of those questions are coming from legislative leadership, most of them, or from, someone who held the office previously and did not seek to conduct an audit in the way that I am seeking this audit, in the way that I am moving forward with it. Reasons for that are up to those folks to talk about. But what I can say is there is precedent for this. This has been done before. The legislature has been audited before, and it may not have been, done in a very long time according to books, but, the more research that we do, the more we find potential, precedent. And in fact, we've been doing some research, and you did mention the 1922 audit that we found. And, it was our understanding, along with everybody else's who we've been talking to, that was the last time that an audit had actually been conducted. In doing research, we're actually turning up some documentation that suggests it actually could have been done more often and more recently. We found in the archives of some of the audits that were done, a 1952 audit that was actually done. And I have it right here. I've, printed out the copies that were taken. There's photos that were actually taken of the documents.
These are public documents.
Yes.
To be clear, available, but they haven't surfaced, surprisingly.
They haven't
in all
surfaced.
This discussion.
They're not. Again, we've all been doing this research for quite a while now, and folks have been looking into this. It's something that was a little even surprising to our office. A lot of employees had been working in the office for quite a while. Many were not aware that these documents actually existed. So we're looking at these documents, and I'm looking right now at an audit that was conducted in 1952 that looked at joint legislative committees, Senate, House committees, special committees that looked at things such as the Speaker's office and payments regarding the Speaker's office and other appropriations that were made here. But there are pages and pages in this audit that was apparently conducted in 1952. Now, we're still getting more information surrounding this, but this leads us to believe that this actually may have been done more recently, but the documents got, sort of put over here somewhere. And the conversation, again, eventually became, well, this can't be done. Furthermore, there is this report. I just have the top page of this right now. But this is actually from 1992, where the state auditor at the time conducted a review covering the salary payments made to a court officer formerly employed by the Office of Sergeant at Arms. Now, the state auditor at the time looked into this issue. The Attorney General at the time had raised cause for concern, apparently, according to this document, about the payments that were being made to this individual, and had requested that the state auditor take a look to make sure, essentially, there wasn't waste, fraud, or abuse going on, and there were no improper payments happening. And the state auditor took a look at that situation and, did a review and laid out their findings. So certainly, there's already precedent with 1922. There's already precedent. There's nothing in the law that prevents the state auditor's office from conducting an audit. And in my opinion, the legislature should be welcoming this as an opportunity to do better, to shine a light in the dark areas of state government. And the documentation that we're finding now suggests that 1922 may not have been the last time this was done. Again, we're reviewing these documents, but that's what it appears.
Okay, so just to be clear, it was understood by most people that 1922 audit, which is the only one people kind of talked about, that's the full audit, the kind that you're wishing to do now, correct? Was that the type of audit that you're looking to do now, what was done in 1922?
There was an audit done in 1922, period. We conduct audits. We have the authority to conduct audits. The argument being made now is that the auditor's office does not have the authority to conduct audits.
Correct.
1922 was an audit that was conducted. We conduct audits now. We're looking to do an audit now, and that's the point.
And you've now, in doing some research, you've uncovered that there was some type of audit done in 1952, and then perhaps something done in you said that letter was 1992. It involved a 1989 case?
Yes, it said it reviewed payments that were made between 1984 and 1989.
Okay, so that establishes even further precedent, which helps you if we're heading for a legal battle, because I get the sense by listening to the Senate President and the Speaker's comments and listening to you not backing down an inch, that we're going to end up in court to determine whether you have the authority to do this or not. Are you willing to go that far?
I certainly hope that we do not have to take this conversation to court. There is clear precedent that the Office of State Auditor has the authority to audit state government entities. And as I said previously, every single state entity has welcomed the opportunity for an audit. The argument being made by legislative leaders right now is that there is a separation of powers that supposedly prevents our office from being able to simply review what's happening in state agencies. That is a bogus argument. We actually conduct audits of the courts. In fact, our office is currently reviewing the SJC right now. So if there was a separation of powers, certainly the courts would not be under the purview of receiving an audit from the Office of State Auditor. The courts comply. The courts are, known to work together with our offices, and we've been auditing the courts. So the argument is a bogus argument. It should not be one that, continues to be made, in my opinion. And look, taxpayers deserve more. This is not someone's private business where their private dollars are being expended. This is the people's house, where the people's business is getting conducted using the people's tax dollars. It is offensive that any one elected official would try to withhold information about how those tax dollars are being spent from people in the Commonwealth whose dollars they are using. It is not respectful of taxpayers, and I hope that legislative leaders change their tune to one that is respectful of taxpayers, considering the fact that we are all elected to be in service of those who live in Massachusetts, who vote for us to be here. And again, this is simply a matter of transparency, accountability, and equity. And, we're hoping that legislative leaders will change their tune, welcome this as the opportunity that it is to make government work better. That's the mandate of our office. The mandate of our office is not to, again, it's not to hurt agencies. It is to help to make government work better. That's what we're seeking to do here. And I hope that legislators would see that as the opportunity it is.
So you're hoping for eventual cooperation despite the initial response from leadership, but you are prepared to go the legal route if you have to?
If we need to have the conversation in court, then that's what we need to do.
All right. There was one other interesting thing, and I kind of pulled up the statements of Senate President Spilka and Speaker Mariano, because there was one area where they both said something in common. Well, they both said you don't have the authority to do that. They both said they have their own systems which look at what they do as required by their internal rules. Basically, it sounded to me like they said we police ourselves. But there was one interesting thing here. President Spilka had her spokesperson release a comment immediately after your announcement. Those rules require that the Senate undergoes an audit every fiscal year by a certified public accounting firm experienced in auditing government entities and provide that audit to the public. Further, Senate business is made public through journals, calendars, and recordings of each session, while payroll and other financial information is publicly available on the Comptroller's site. It stuck out to me, she said payroll and other financial information. She didn't say all financial information. Let's go back to Speaker Mariano's statement Friday, March 24th. From a news story here, basically any performance assessment by DiZoglio and the House actions, including active and pending legislation, committee appointments, legislative rules, and its policies and procedures would violate basic separation of powers principles, which you said. Any such assessment is the sole responsibility of the House. Again, we police ourselves. The last quote, therefore, given that your attempt to conduct a performance audit of the House of Representatives exceeds your legal authority and is unconstitutional, your request to begin such an audit is respectfully denied. Now, he didn't use the word financial information in there, specifically in a quote, but he did say the House's financial accounts are already public. The budget's public, so on and so forth. Strikes me that not everything is public. Non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, which was a huge thing of yours going back to when you were in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. I'm also
that's a great point, Teddy, actually, and one that hasn't actually been made as it pertains to this, but you're actually on point there when you
right off the bat. We know that some financial information is hidden from the taxpayers, and that those non-disclosure agreements are paid for with taxpayer dollars. But, people have said to me, she's just doing this because of her own situation with a non-disclosure agreement. But I find it really hard to believe that there's only one type of non-disclosure agreements. I'm willing to bet that if you dig far enough, you may find a whole bunch of other non-disclosure agreements. And again, that isn't making financial records available to the taxpayers who fund all of this.
Correct. So if all of the financial information, if all of the information that needs to be made available to the general public is readily available to the general public already, then how much was spent on each of the non-disclosure agreements that was given out? And why were those non-disclosure agreements given out, right? So that is information that you correctly point to as not being readily available. And thank you, Teddy, by the way, for pointing out the fact that, yes, I was given a non-disclosure agreement. That non-disclosure agreement provided me with the opportunity to know that non-disclosure agreements were given out. So when the general counsel was telling in the House of Representatives, members of the House of Representatives, that they didn't exist for cases of harassment, I, as a member, was sitting there saying, why are they saying that? I have one for that. I know that not to be true. And yes, I got up and I challenged my leadership team on why it was being said that they didn't exist when I knew full well that they did, because I had one. But it didn't just expose that they were being used for sexual harassment. It exposed that they could be being used for a host of different things. And a lot of times, you're right, the conversation does get marginalized into this conversation surrounding sexual harassment. But what about potential corruption? What about potential abuse of taxpayer dollars? What about discrimination?
Hiring practices, racial discrimination, all sorts of things could have, non-disclosure agreements, right?
And there are potential finances, financial information, financial documents that are attached to those, right? So great point. And, look, again, this is to open up the process to give everyday residents a seat at the table. This is not something that is between me and the speaker or between me and the Senate president. I'm a constitutional officer elected by the people to help to mediate that conversation between the powers that be and the taxpayers. And the taxpayers have been very clear in saying that they want access to information regarding how their tax dollars are being spent, especially when it pertains to the legislature. So when I speak out about this, when I talk about this, when I talk about the need for transparency, accountability, and equity, I am talking about those things so as to make sure that people in our communities have the knowledge they need to be able to advocate for whatever their cause is. We hear it growing up, Teddy. Think about going back to school, right? If we're, going back to like kindergarten, second grade, third grade, whatever. We always heard the phrase, knowledge is power, right? Knowledge is power. When we think about that, when we think about how people in our communities are prevented from getting access to knowledge about what's happening, what does that mean? If knowledge is power and the leadership team is trying to prevent folks in our communities from getting access to knowledge, that means that they're also prevented from getting access to power. So whoever has the knowledge also has the power. That's what this is about. Knowledge is power. And right now, that knowledge and therefore that power is centralized into the hands of just a few people in the state of Massachusetts. And that is unacceptable. That's what needs to change. That's what we're fighting to change. It is a worthy battle. People in our communities, regardless of their family background, their bank balance, their zip code, should be able to have access to that knowledge that will empower them to be able to advocate for themselves and for their families. Whether you're the most conservative person in the state of Massachusetts or whether you're the most liberal, you deserve to have a seat at the table and to be able to make informed decisions and have access to that knowledge.
You are watching the Inside View with Teddy Panos and State Auditor Diana DiZoglio, talking about her plans. You've begun the formal process of conducting the audit, correct?
Yes, and contrary to popular belief amongst legislative leaders, this is not a process that's able to just be some rogue handing off of, you're getting an audit. That's not the way this works. We actually are working alongside of the Government Accountability Office at the national level, which is part of the agency that actually audits state auditors' offices around the country to make sure that they are conducting audits in the appropriate fashion, in the appropriate manner, and according to government standards. So we're actually working with the GAO on a regular basis, asking them questions, fielding our work through them to make sure that we're doing this just the right way. We want to make sure that we're doing things the right way because, we see the pushback that's coming in doing this, and we want to make sure people know, this is something that we're doing in coordination with our partners at the federal level who, guide state auditors' offices, and we are crossing our T's, dotting our I's, and doing things by the book.
Besides the finances, both Speaker Mariano and President Spilka talked about all of our procedures and sessions and all that. All this is public record and readily available. It's not. But I mean, I don't know I don't know how they say that, knowing how much business in both the House and Senate, you served in both, how much gets conducted at 3 o'clock in the morning? I mean, with these marathon budget sessions where, not just you, others have said, why are we voting on important legislation when we haven't even had time to read it yet? By the time it comes out of these, closed door sessions, these closed door sessions aren't public record, are they?
The state legislature in Massachusetts is infamous for conducting business under a cloak of darkness. We are consistently ranked as one of the, if not the least transparent state governments in the entire nation. So to hear comments from legislative leadership such as an audit is wholly unnecessary is frankly unbelievable. We again rank as one of the least, if not the least, depending on the Good Government Group, transparent state governments in the entire nation. That is incredibly concerning. That should bother folks, again, because knowledge is power, and if you don't have knowledge about what's happening, that means that the power is centralized into the hands of a few who are able to make decisions about the laws we all live by and about how our taxpayer dollars are spent. So it absolutely is necessary, and with a state government that's ranked as the least transparent state government in the entire nation, again, to see this level of pushback, it's incredibly concerning.
How have your colleagues reacted? Again, you serve with most of these people in the House and Senate. How have they reacted? Have they kind of echoed leadership? Have they stayed largely silent, which was my experience when I reached out to the Lowell delegation? Only one of the 4 members actually issued a public statement. In general, how have they reacted?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about what my experience was in the state legislature of, very often witnessing political retaliation and retaliation against the communities of those, who retaliation in the communities, whether it be budgetary or otherwise, if their representative, if their senator, challenged leadership or stood up to leadership, you'd see folks getting, a certain amount of money for a particular project, that was a certain amount of, it was a smaller amount. And then you'd see somebody else who, was a little bit more able to get along with the legislative leadership team, seeing a lot more for their community from time to time. We would see that, right? So right now, I mean, it's not really any different than what my experience was as a member of the state legislature, where, you have some folks that are out there and saying, this is great, we welcome the opportunity, and, hope that this audit is conducted. But then there are some that have, seen retaliation occur and have expressed concerns that if they support such an effort, that they may be retaliated against, and that their community might not get the funding that they need, or they might not be able to pass the bill that they really need. So there are concerns about that, and I hear those concerns, and it's unfortunate that those things have to be concerns. But look, we've spoken to a lot of legislators who say, if you're able to do it, then do it, of course, and I've had legislators express, we're not sure about, the constitutionality and this, that, and the other thing, but, when you ask them, well, do you think it should be done? Their answer is, well, yes, of course it should be done. Any opportunity for increased transparency and accountability and equity, we welcome. Whether or not that's able to be the case, remains to be seen. But, I think it's great that some legislators are, vocally fighting for this to happen, knowing that it's the right thing to do.
One of those people who spoke, the only one of the Lowell delegation to speak on the record, was State Representative Vanna Howard, who was a friend of yours, early supporter of your campaign, and she is one of those in support of what you're trying to do. She told us at InsideLowell back in early March, I think generally speaking that accountability, transparency, and equity are good, so having a regular audit of the legislature is a good thing for the public. I appreciate Auditor DiZoglio for proposing it. So she says not just a one-time thing, a regular audit. She's in support.
Representative Howard, she gets it. She gets it. And she sees this the way our office sees this, which is as an opportunity to help to give residents that have been struggling a seat at the table by, understanding a little bit more fully what's happening up on Beacon Hill, right? So that they can be part of that process before and not after decisions are made, so that we can give some of that power that exists up on Beacon Hill back to the people of the Commonwealth, again, who want nothing more than a seat at the table. And that's what Representative Howard is fighting for alongside of our office. She's seeking to help the residents in her communities have access, just like we are.
Do you fear that this might take away attention and energy resources from other audits? Because as you mentioned, you're doing other audits out there. I know you got one very public of the MBTA that's going on. Do you fear that this effort and any prolonged legal battle, will take away resources that you need to do your full job carefully?
I will say we are in the middle of conducting 72, I believe, audits right now. I'm getting ready to report a couple out that I've been reading. But with 72 audits going on, our office is hard at work on a host of issues. This is the one that is getting the most public attention. But we have been conducting audits of, sheriff's departments, local transit authorities, the, RTAs in our communities, elder affairs, criminal justice information systems, and again, the SJC, amongst a host of other agencies. So the work is continuing. And I think that, just to break this down for folks, not everyone, I wouldn't expect people to know the inner workings and stuff, but the way our office works is we don't just have a team of people just working on one audit at a time. What they'll do is they'll be working on multiple audits at a time. So if they make a phone call to a place like the legislature and they're not hearing back from those folks, then, what they do is they put the folder down and they move on to, the next topic. In which, again, they get responses from every other entity, and they are able to conduct audits of every other entity right now. So they're moving along. It is, part of that process that they are engaged in on a day-to-day basis. So we're working. We're moving along. We're conducting the audits that are required, that are mandated for our office to conduct. And, again, I hope the legislature will willingly enter into this conversation with us.
What are your enforcement powers? Does the auditor's office have any ability to enforce anything if you find improprieties financially or procedurally or otherwise?
So we are not a law enforcement branch, like, the Attorney General, for example. We cannot prosecute or anything like that. It's merely our job just to shine a light on what's happening and then give that information to the public. That's why I like to talk about our office's work, sort of as like the mediator between tax-paying residents and state agencies and state government. Folks in our communities will contact us and say, this might be a problem, that might be a problem. You might want to look under the hood in this department. We're concerned about the processes and procedures in a particular agency. DCF, the MBTA are kind of salient examples. And we're able to go in and we're able to look at what's happening in those agencies. And then produce a report back to folks in our communities to say, look, here's what we found in our audit, in our reporting process, and give that information to folks in the communities so that they're able to have access to information so as to be able to advocate. So that's what we do. And
if this audit goes ahead, whether through some agreement or whether some court ruling, how long do you anticipate it will take?
Oh, and I'm sorry, I didn't get to your question.
You don't really have enforcement powers. If you find any improprieties, then you need...
It could get referred. It could get referred to the Attorney General's office, for example. But no, we don't have the ability to force agencies to do anything. We have the opportunity to shine a light on what's happening and then, give the general public insight into those happenings. If an agency is non-compliant, the statute does say that we are able to take that matter to court, where the court shall require the production of documents and testimony. so that we are able to do our jobs when it has to do with an audit if an agency is in noncompliance.
Okay. And how long do you anticipate this audit? It sounds like it could drag on.
Well, that will depend on legislative leadership, right? Welcoming the audit, again, as every other state entity, including our courts, has done, as they recognize this as an opportunity to help residents in the Commonwealth and to make government work better. So the timeline of this, whether we need to go to court or whether we can, get some better responses from legislative leadership will, help to determine how much time this will take.
But to be clear, those documents that are right in front of you that you've been referring to show audits, not just 1922. They show that the Massachusetts State Auditor's Office has looked into legislative financial dealings and others as recently as 1952 and maybe even 1992. No, actually not maybe. 1992 was the letter you said, but it goes back an investigation as far back as 84, correct?
Expenses of legislative committees, uniforms, mailing fees of legislative documents and bulletins, legislative documents and bulletins, sales of chairs to members of the Senate, looking at these things with, telephone tolls, travel expenses, disbursements. And again, it says general court, House chambers, Senate and House chambers on here. So we're going to keep up our research. The 1922 audit does set precedent, but we have found additional documentation. Now, we've been really hard at work, and I'd be remiss not to thank our incredible staff in the State Auditor's Office for their commitment to really, really digging deep to make sure that we are finding some of this information to help increase transparency for everyday people in the Commonwealth.
I had people tell me that once you got sworn in, they said, "Where's her audit of the legislature that she promised?" And I always told them, "Wait." They said, "No, she's not going to go through with it." I said, "You don't know the new auditor." You follow
and
through.
Look, yeah, I'll say this to everyone out there. My name may be Diana, but I am not Wonder Woman over here. So I need the support of folks in our communities to help to raise awareness around the fact that this is happening, this should be happening, and that legislators should be welcoming this. This is the right thing to do. Our tax dollars are being spent. We deserve to know how. Legislators should not be above the law. And certainly, one individual in the House and another in the Senate who got elected by a few thousand votes in one representative district in the Commonwealth and then another in one Senate district in the Commonwealth should not be able to have so much power that they're able to decide for the entire state that we're not able to get access to information about how our tax dollars are spent. Keeping that knowledge potentially hidden from the general public, thereby keeping that power to themselves. That power belongs in the hands of the people.
State Auditor DiZoglio, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for your time. Hopefully we'll get you back here. We can talk about the MBTA audit and some others.
There's a lot going on, so I'm happy to come back.
All right. Don't be a stranger. We want to thank the auditor for joining us this morning. Lots of news made there, and I'm sure a lot of folks are going to be referencing this podcast again. We recorded it on Monday morning, March 27th. Regardless of when you're watching it, we appreciate you being with us inside Lowell. As we like to say, if Lowell is your home, this is your place. On this podcast, if Massachusetts is your home, this is your place. Thanks for joining us. Till next time, stay safe, everybody.